Hello friends. Today we embark on another fascinating journey into the dark world of true crime stories. Get ready to investigate, discover, and reveal the secrets of a dark and dramatic case. Are you ready to dive into this thrilling investigation? Let's get started now. Today we will cover 3 unbelievable cases of people discovered in extremely bizarre places that will leave you speechless. If you like true crime mysteries and true stories, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe now. Let's get started. The story of Sandile Sibiya. Breaking or spraining a limb is never a pleasant experience. The most painful part is the pain from the injury itself, but the second equally painful part is admitting that going to the hospital is inevitable. For a construction worker, this can become especially troublesome. These could have been Sandile Sibiya's thoughts on May 10, 2019, when he accidentally injured his right leg and realized that a trip to the hospital was inevitable. He, a construction worker and local resident of Durban, South Africa, arrived at the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Hospital in the early afternoon in quite a painful condition. When he arrived, he was expected to wait his turn in the hospital waiting room like any other patient. After a long wait, he finally saw the doctor and had an X-ray. X-ray results showed that he had a broken femur and definitely needed further medical treatment. At that time, staff at Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Hospital instructed Sandile to stay overnight, or possibly several days, until he was transferred to another nearby facility, Addington, to see the right orthopedist for the cast. However, Sandile couldn't wait that long. When it was time to transfer him, hospital staff came to his room with paperwork, but when they entered, Sandile Sibiya was nowhere to be seen. Hospital staff immediately conducted a search throughout the facility because they thought he could not walk far with a seriously injured leg. After checking every floor of the building and looking into every other patient room, they were dumbfounded when they realized Sandile had seemingly disappeared without a trace. Sandile's disappearance made no sense to anyone working at the Mahatma Gandhi Memorial Hospital. The staff promptly reported him missing to local authorities. South African police immediately opened a missing person case and launched a massive search across Durban to find him. Unfortunately, despite search efforts, no one was able to find any sign of Sandile. Many theories have been put forward surrounding his mysterious disappearance, but nothing seems plausible, and no one has information explaining why Sandile went missing in the first place from the Chiang Mai Hospital. Site Mahatma Gandhi. Hospital staff were worried about Sandile's health, especially the wound on his right leg, and they didn't understand how he had disappeared under their noses. In the end, it was the unpleasant stench that led them to the important clue. On 24 May 2019, just 10 days after Sandile arrived at the hospital, Noma Gugusemalani Zulu, head of the KwaZulu-Natal Department of Health, received reports of an unbearable stench that was increased at the hospital. When liquid began leaking from the ceiling, hospital staff decided to investigate its source themselves. They followed the stench and liquid to a warehouse inside the hospital. When hospital staff finally discovered the warehouse had a terrible smell, they cautiously turned on their flashlights and explored inside. The scene before their eyes made them completely stunned. On the ceiling of the warehouse, they discovered the body of Sandile Sibiya, who had passed away many days ago. His presence on the ceiling of an unexpected area explains his mysterious disappearance, but also raises many unanswered questions. Sandile Sibiya's decomposing body was discovered on the ceiling of a room at Mahatma Gandhi Hospital. When hospital staff reported this discovery to local police, they confirmed that this was the same man who mysteriously disappeared nearly 2 weeks ago. The incident has raised many questions about the circumstances of the death of Sandile, who despite a broken femur was a healthy 53-year-old man capable of taking care of himself. How could he die on the hospital ceiling when the hospital itself had tight security with security guards in every area? In fact, the hospital claims that the only way patients can go out without being detected is if they change into normal clothes during the busiest hours of their visit. However, Sandile was found decomposed on the ceiling of a room that only hospital staff could enter while investigating his disappearance. This has led to various theories about Sandile's death, including that he may have been a mental patient. Initially, some reports suggested that Sandile was actually a mental patient before her disappearance, but this was denied by the hospital during the investigation. Officials are adamant that they will take the strongest possible measures if anyone is found to have committed wrongdoing. However, Sandile's death remains a mystery, and how his body ended up on the ceiling of the very hospital where he had gone for help just days before remains unexplained. Second story, Brian Egg. The second story we want to tell today is about Brian Egg. Brian Egg was born and raised in San Francisco and spent most of his later years living in the south of Market Soma area of the city. After spending much of his youth as a bartender at legendary gay bars, Brian returned to live in the Soma area. He has a close relationship with his family and is in regular contact with them. In late May or early June 2018, Brian seemed busier with his life. He began helping the community more often, becoming known for cleaning up alleys in the area. One weekend, neighbors saw him cleaning the neighborhood before returning home. That was the last time anyone saw Brian Egg alive. Around late June or early July of the same year, Brian's older brother Devon tried to call him to chat. When Devon calls Brian's home phone, he gets an answering machine asking to leave a message. This was strange because Brian almost always answered calls and had never used an answering machine. Furthermore, the voice on the machine was not Brian's. Devon checked the phone number again and made sure he had dialed the correct number. When Devon called again, this time someone picked up. A man named Nate answered and said Brian was walking his dog and would call back later. Devon found the situation very strange but decided to wait. However, that call never came. Although worried about his brother's unusual behavior, Devon thought that maybe Brian was just busy or had made new friends. At the end of July 2018, Brian's neighbors realized they hadn't seen him in a while. Rumors began to spread and many people became worried about Brian's health. They called the police, expressing concern that Brian might be missing or seriously injured in the house. The police decided to check Brian's residence to see if he needed help. However, every time the police arrived, Brian was not present. On separate occasions, no one answered the door and police concluded that Brian must have left town without informing anyone. So they don't seem too worried about Brian's disappearance. However, residents of the Soma neighborhood feel completely different. A longtime neighbor decided to use social media to spread the news about Brian's possible disappearance. He and many other neighbors began to worry that the police were not taking their statements seriously. After Scott's post about Brian, many other neighbors also joined the discussion, expressing their concerns about this man. The entire neighborhood united in vowing to keep an eye on Brian's house and be vigilant for any suspicious activity. They began reporting that they had seen two strangers constantly coming and going from Brian's house. No one in the neighborhood recognized these two young men, and they confirmed that Brian had no relationship with them. Soma residents once again tried to convince the police to investigate Brian's disappearance, although their efforts appeared to be unsuccessful. Brian's sister was also worried because no one in the family had heard from him for months. After many calls from neighbors and Brian's family, on August 4th, some police officers decided to stop by Brian's house again. When the police knocked on the door, no one answered. According to neighbors, the two men they saw appeared to be homeless and had been living in Brian's house for some time. This partly explains why no one has seen Brian for a long time. Although the two strangers did not open the door to talk to the police, the significant difference in the condition of Brian's house made neighbors suspicious. Just hours after police left, neighbors reported seeing a large amount of soap suds coming out from under the door, along with a strong smell of bleach. It seemed the strangers had organized a thorough house cleaning session. They are even said to be repainting the area in front of the house as if trying to hide something. On August 7th, Brian's sister officially reported him missing, and on August 14th, Soma residents again called the police after seeing a crime scene cleanup company vehicle. The project has been parked outside Brian's house for a long time. This time, the police responded immediately to the neighbor's request and sent multiple officers to Brian's house. Here, the police arrested one of two strangers living at Brian's house for nearly 2 months. This person was identified as Robert McCaffrey, 52 years old, and had at least $1,000 in cash, which they said he was going to use to pay the crime scene cleanup company. Just 2 days later, police identified another man in connection with Brian's disappearance, named Lance Silva, 39, and arrested him at a nearby residential hotel. When both Robert and Lance were arrested and questioned, police charged them both with identity theft and financial crimes, as they allegedly used Brian's credit card to buy a car. However, at that time, Brian's whereabouts were still unclear. Hours after Robert and Lance's initial arrest, the police returned to Brian's house to find more clues about his whereabouts and whether he was still alive. When searching the house, police discovered a storage room located under the stairs that they had never seen before. As soon as they opened the door, they immediately smelled an unpleasant stench. In the storage room, there was a strange fish tank, inside which investigators noticed something strange: the torso of a body that had been decapitated and had no arms. That's all that's left after Brian Egg's death. Brian's death was ultimately ruled a homicide by the San Francisco medical examiner. Both Robert and Lance were charged with murder, identity theft, elder abuse, and various financial crimes. The office ultimately dropped all charges against both men pending further investigation. Robert was eventually released, and Lance was detained in Alameda County for a parole violation, but was also released. To date, no one has been convicted in court for the gruesome death of Brian Egg. More than a year after Brian's dismembered body was found in a chemical-filled fish tank at his home, his killer remains at large. The Brian Egg case is a heartbreaking tragedy, reflecting the mysterious disappearance and brutal death of a man with an ordinary life. Although the family and neighbors tried to search, the police's initial indifference made the situation more serious. The investigation eventually leads to the discovery of Brian's body in an aquarium, confirming that it was a murder. However, to date, those responsible have not been brought to justice, leaving many unanswered questions and pain for families and communities. This case reminds us of the importance of care and responsibility in protecting those around us. Case 3: the family is reclusive. The last case we want to tell you today is a story containing many secrets and unanswered questions in the Revold community, where daily life is often very routine. Revold is a place where everyone knows each other and rumors spread quickly. However, residents of this small town often keep interesting stories that happen in their lives a secret, even though they think they know everything around them. In October 2020, a local coffee shop called De Castelline welcomed a new customer for the first time in a long time. Revold is primarily a country town cafe and doesn't often get the attention of tourists. When there are visitors, they often act strangely, like the young man who arrived on the first day of October. The cafe staff described this man as quite thin and seemingly unable to communicate in words, eyes with anyone. At first, the young man only spoke incoherently with other people in the cafe. When he finally ordered, he asked for 5 liters of beer to drink alone. When the cafe staff brought the drinks, the young man drank 5 beers in one gulp. This made everyone around him curious why he was acting so strangely. The cafe closed shortly after the encounter with the boy, and the cafe staff assumed they would never see the boy again. However, the next night, the young man returned to the cafe acting strangely like the night before. Silent until he finished speaking, the cafe staff tried to talk to him because there was something very strange about the way he acted. People feel like something is wrong, but they can't pinpoint the cause. The cafe staff's curiosity and excitement motivated them to continue learning. After drinking a few beers, the young man blurted out something he thought should have been kept a secret. According to cafe owner Chris Westerbeek, the young man said he had not gone out for 9 years and had 4 siblings living on the farm. He said he was the eldest brother and wanted to end his previous lifestyle. Chris and the other staff did not know how to process this information. Some speculated that he might be insane or addicted to drugs, while others saw the desperation on his face and believed he was truly scared for his life. Chris decided to err on the side of caution and called the local police to investigate the young man's strange and disturbing claims. When he did so, he had no idea what would happen next. The young man claimed that he had stayed in the house for 9 years because he followed a certain religion or sect, but did not provide further information. The next day, after Chris called the police station, the police visited the property where the young man lived. When they arrived, they were shocked to discover the truth taking place right inside a farm that local people pass by every day. The house is located more than 200 meters from the nearest road and 100 meters from other houses. That means people passing by can't easily see what's going on inside the farm. On the ground floor was a small room that the officers initially thought was empty when they looked inside, but they were surprised by what happened. Police said that inside the small room they found many people, an entire family. When questioned by the police, every family member claimed that they were all over 18 and adults, although none of them could give a straight answer as to why they were all forced into a single room. Police noted that there were 6 reclusive people on the farm, in addition to 25-year-old Jan, who was the first and only member of the reclusive family to escape into town in more than 9 years. Jan, the tired stranger at the coffee shop, appeared nervous and uncomfortable when talking about his situation. When the police discovered it, they learned that all 6 people hiding in the farm were actually between the ages of 12 and 15, not 18 as they claimed. They appear to have been taught to lie about their age if discovered. Although some of them did not want to leave the facility, the police took all 6 children into their care and ensured that all were immediately examined by a doctor to assess their health. Police were initially unsure whether the family voluntarily lived on the farm and, more importantly, how they got there. Subsequent investigations revealed that all 6 children hidden on the farm had never been recorded on the official register, meaning they were believed to have been born in secret and completely kept private from the rest of the world. Social police quickly tracked down the man they believed to be the father of 6, 67-year-old Garrett, who was arrested. However, it was only after investigators alleged that he was not alone in intentionally keeping his child. Police were searching for an Austrian man named Joseph B., known locally as an odd-job man who rented a farm. Investigators allege that the 2 men are running a doomsday cult with no connection to the outside world. The BBC reported that over the years, Garrett is believed to have abused most of the children, although none of the children filed formal complaints against their father or Joseph. As the investigation progressed, police learned that Garrett actually had 3 grown daughters who had managed to leave the house before the family allegedly withdrew from society. Garrett was also charged with money laundering, illegal detention, and more. According to authorities, Joseph B. was charged and suspected of kidnapping and money laundering. Both Garrett and Joseph knew very well that what they did would be punished by the law. During the trial, investigators claimed to have found evidence that the children were abused while at the farm. They were required to pray weekly and were sometimes expected to drink only water without eating. At trial, many children said they were intentionally physically punished by Garrett in a variety of ways, from being beaten with a stick to being forced to sit in an ice bath until they lost consciousness. The prosecution also reported that children were punished to ward off evil spirits, or when Garrett deemed them unclean. Police said they found evidence of criminal conduct, and such statements were also recorded in Garrett's diary, which they collected during the investigation. The investigation into the strange circumstances surrounding the family's isolation continues to this day. Both Joseph and Garrett remain in police custody, while investigators try to better understand what happened at the farm over the past 9 years. Meanwhile, Jan and her children are now gradually adapting to the outside world. This is really worth finding out, as you never know what kind of horror story might be lurking right under your nose, quite literally. The 3 cases above all show the dark and scary aspects of life, from carelessness and irresponsibility in medical facilities to brutality and abuse of power in social groups. Each case is not only a story of crime, but also a reminder of the importance of attention, responsibility, and justice in protecting the vulnerable in society. Thank you for watching today's true crime stories. From mysterious and contradictory cases to heartbreaking tragedies, these stories not only amaze us but also remind us of the importance of listening and protecting those around us. Click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any interesting cases in the True Crime Stories series. Don't forget to share your thoughts about these stories and the issues they raise. See you in the next episodes with more dramatic and thrilling crime stories.